Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Get in the Herd. This is a recovery podcast from the McShin Foundation. I'm your host, Alex Bond. I am an administrative assistant, recovery coach trainer, and house leader here at the McShin Foundation. And more importantly, I am a person in recovery from substance use disorder. And I've found for the last 11 months, no desire to put any mood or mind altering substances in my body. I'm here with a couple of newcomers to recovery overall, definitely newcomers to McShin and newcomers to the recovery movement. I've got Brian and James. How are you guys doing?
It's going well.
Feeling good. Yourself? Feeling positive.
Awesome. Happy to have you guys on, man. Brian, why don't you introduce yourself?
My name is Brian. I'm a recovering addict from right here in Richmond. Just been here about 2 weeks and loving it. Feeling a lot better.
That's awesome, man. James, why don't you introduce yourself?
Well, I'm coming down here from Athens, Ohio. I'm very new to the whole thing, but I've been learning a hell of a lot throughout the whole process. I've definitely gotten to know a lot about the process of addiction, how exactly it works on the human mind. It's a fascinating subject, and I'm getting more into it, and hopefully I'll be able to use that coming up as an intern in a couple of days here for you.
That's awesome, man. We're very happy to have you here, both of you, one local, one from the Midwest. I've seen a lot of people in this program from all over the place, whether it be, in-house in our backyard or Ohio, Maine, Texas, Florida, wherever, Oklahoma, all over the place. So first off, James, how did you find this place and how did you get your foot in the door in recovery?
Well, it honestly started with my Aunt Donna suggested that I come down here after I was going through a 28-day intensive medical program. So up in Columbus, I was at a place called the Woods at Parkside, and that was an excellent place that she'd actually sent her daughter. Mm-hmm. And then she ended up bringing, just through one of her connections down in Florida who knew John, she found out that this was a good place and I could come here and try and work on my brain a little bit more after getting all the stuff out of it.
Work on the brain a little more. That's awesome. How did you find this place, Brian?
Well, I've tried to recover on myself alone a couple of times. I had 9 months clean, had a year clean, but then the last run just got a little too rough, and my parents kind of, my dad had known about this place because we're local to here, and he's like, "Well, I don't think you can do it alone. You need to get somebody behind you and get a support system."
Yeah, that connection, that sense of it, building a network, finding people to connect with, is vital to this whole process. And I hope you don't mind, but you said something, I think on Monday, we were doing a gratitude check here, and you pointed on one of the whiteboards in the basement and said, I'm grateful that my name isn't beside my best friends on that board over there. Yeah, and that gave me goosebumps, man. Is that how much of a motivating factor is dealing with that grief? Do you might have some survivor's guilt or anything like that? Can you kind of expound on that?
It's definitely a big motivation for me because what I just tell myself is I don't want to waste my chance that he didn't have. He died at 21 years old, and it's just to think back of all the things he could have accomplished. It's just I don't want to waste my potential. It's just I'm the lucky one that made it, and I don't want to have the same story.
Mm-hmm. And James, you've been practicing a bunch of different pathways to recovery. Why is that, and kind of what are they?
Well, I started at mostly an educational and AA focused facility. I mentioned the Woods at Parkside.
Okay.
And going through that, I got a good understanding of how this works from a very scientific standpoint. And the things that they said were the most important were getting back into a community, like how the Portugal system works, cognitive behavioral therapy, and dialectic behavioral therapy. In short, just thinking about your feelings, feeling about your thinking. And I thought that SMART recovery, which is one of the programs we have here, was very good at the second and third, but didn't really have much in the way of a community. It was mostly a bunch of intellectual loners. And I thought that NA had a very good opportunity for getting into a community. So I realized that I don't think I can choose. I think I have to stick with both of them because they're both providing something that's really needed for me, at least in the program.
Mm-hmm. So you think that it is vital to do multiple of those for your recovery?
Very much so.
Do you think that's a blanketed statement? Like, do Brian and I have to try to pick and choose different things? Can we stick with one? Kind of, what are your thoughts on that?
For me, I think that it's being able to do these things can be done through any avenue. These are just the most effective ones that I've found for myself, because being able to have a lot of the scientific processes talked over really helps me, but it may not help Brian very much. It may just be words coming into his head. I kind of doubt that. Brian's a pretty smart dude. But
I actually agree with everything he says. As far as I'm an intellectual person too, so I like to see the scientific side of it, and I like the approach to recovery that Smart has. But the NA just seems to have a way bigger sense of community for networking. So I like to, like he said, I want to try, the recovery approach through Smart, but also tie myself into the community of the NA.
Yeah, because the mentality of Smart is pretty cool. Like, kind of seeing it through that, cognitive, scientific lens. But it's your program when it comes to that sort of thing. It's very like, you draw up your plan and everything, and it's not as touchy feely, digging in, being vulnerable, like all that stuff's kind of off the table. But James has mentioned the narratives that go into an NA meeting or a 12-step meeting are really like impactful, because they make me feel less lonely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And the story is just really important to me, being able to have that communication. It's what I'm working on for the concept that I've sort of loosely booked together of like a different recovery program. But the other thing that made me really not want to stick with just Smart is that they don't have a concept of making amends in their basic tenets. And I do think that if you don't fix the problems that you've developed, well, if I don't fix the problems I've developed from going through this whole process, being an addict and making really bad decisions, then they're going to hang over my head. I'm not going to be able to move on properly if I don't figure out just what I can do to make things a little bit better that I've messed up.
Yeah, like, own it.
Yeah.
You got to own your stuff at some point in time. And so just to kind of divert a little bit, what did you guys expect coming into this? Especially being brand new in recovery. I mean, you abstained and kind of got some time without using here or there.
Right.
But it didn't sound productive, or it sounded productive. It kind of got your like feet wet a little bit. But so what did you actually expect before you walked in the doors here, and how did you feel upon getting here, Brian?
Well, to kind of flip that a little bit, what I didn't expect was to be welcomed so openly and to fit in so well. I mean, just the community around here is awesome. And I mean, within 2 weeks of being here, I've already decided that I want to stay for at least another 6 months.
That's awesome.
So, I mean, all in all, it's just a lot more positive vibes than I had expected. I thought it'd be a lot more, strict, like people telling you what to do all the time, which there's definitely, protocols and stuff, but it gives you a chance to kind of get out of your shell and meet new people.
I definitely feel that. I have a lot of dissimilarities from the average recovery patient, but everyone is so cooperative here. It's just amazing to find a community where all walks of life can really just find the things that they have in common and learn how to synthesize something good out of that.
You really feel like you belong around here.
And have you found that in the house, at the church, a little bit of both? I mean, what's kind of like living together like? Because you guys both are housemates at the intensive house. How's that experience?
I mean, I love our house. They're all my brothers. We laugh. I mean, I have not laughed so much in my life until I came to this place. Just honest, good moments, And it's nice because, in the intensive program, you don't have things to distract you from the other people. So you kind of have to pull together to entertain each other, I guess. So you kind of just feed off each other's energy, and it keeps you uplifted a lot, rather than kind of you be isolating and stuff like that.
Yeah, on a positive wave. And then from my experience, anyone that's kind of starts to isolate, they just end up getting brought out of their shell eventually. But how hard is it to meet those people in the middle? So you've got a person who's isolating. Do you continuously and constantly try to coax them out of their shell? Or is it their job to get out of their shell, or do you have to meet them in the middle? Kind of like, how do you deal with that?
I always go
James?
very in the middle personally. I want to give people the occasional offer of support, but if they're not being receptive, I just sort of will back off because I know sometimes people need their privacy. One of the things that I think has been really helpful that I've been doing is about 5 or 6 times a week, basically every night, I've been making people a family meal because it gets people together at a table and talking. Whether or not it's about something important, it makes that sense of community a little bit more tangible. And, you know, I'm trying to get the guys to actually eat some vegetables, which is a little difficult with people who are in addiction. But, you know, it's starting to work. I'm helping people get their recovery 20 back on.
Yeah. No, that's good. I mean, I've had the most successful houses that I've been a part of ate together at least at absolute bare minimum, you know, twice a week or something like that, because it does bring people out of their shell. It makes you feel important, like what you do matters when you help cook for other people too. Absolutely. What are some other things like that that you might help and participate in, Brian? I see you like kind of lead the charge in some of the community stuff here at the church when it comes to like, you know, a bit of the chores or the community exercise, some of the team building. Like I just always notice you quick to like speak up and be positive. Why is that important?
I don't know. That's just kind of how I've always been. I've always been someone to put others before me, I guess. It's just something that makes me feel good about myself. And, you know, as far as the chores and stuff goes, that's just right up my alley because I've run maintenance for a hotel. And David, you know, I'm very appreciative of David, our house leader. So being he's in that role, he does a lot for me. So I want to feel like I can give back something to him and have kind of a mutual, you know,
that's cool
relationship. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense too, that you get to help him out. Now I hear you say you've usually put people before you.
Almost to a fault.
Yeah. That's all right. So you see where I'm going now.
Absolutely.
How do you stop doing that? Because I was a similar way. I know a lot of people were even worse than me. I've had times where I was extremely selfish. So how do you find that balance? How do you deal with being told you need to stop being selfish and help other people out, but be selfish in your recovery? I mean, it seems kind of like oxymoronic a little bit.
Right. I've just really been reflecting on, you know, the things I've been trying to mask on the inside, like the emotional problems and the isolation and stuff like that. And instead of trying to help other people, I try to ask myself, what do I need to do for myself? You know, as far as getting out and doing activities that I enjoy and all kinds of different things.
James, cool. You've told me a similar thing is that one of your main goals in life is to change the infrastructure of things and continuously leave the world a better place than how you found it. So how do you do that while also trying to be, you know, selfish in your recovery?
Well, for me, the thing that I need to focus the most on is my development of social skills. So realistically, the thing that helps me the most is helping other people, is doing things so I'm being selfish by being altruistic. It's sort of, again, a little bit of an oxymoron, but the best thing that I can do for myself is really just spend that time trying to better my interactions, trying to make people a little bit happier, because I'm not a great reader of people. You know, it's one of those things that I still got to work on. It's a big part of why I decided that I need to go into long-term recovery program instead of just going through the 28 days that I was doing over at the Woods.
And I would say, to kind of touch on that, one of the big differences for me is like one thing I've really realized since I got here, you know, they say change your people, places, and things. Well, I had to come to the brutal realization that, you know, all my people outside of here, as much as I reach out to help them and do things for them, they never did it in return.
No.
So here, when I reach out to help the people around me, then when I'm down, you know, they can kind of reach back and lift me up. So by helping other people, it actually helps me a lot.
No, it's I think not only appreciated more when you're helping someone who needs help here, but there is no, like when I help other people out, I don't ever expect anything in return.
Exactly.
Like there's never a sense of, you know, James cooks 6 nights a week. It's not like you do that expecting someone to make your bed for you in the morning or something like that.
I mean, maybe they could clean up the dishes after, but you know,
it's only fair.
I mean, I don't ask anyone in particular
That's
to
more
do
of a
that.
social
And if it doesn't
contract
get done,
type
I
thing.
do it myself.
Yeah.
But you know, it's still the sort of thing where hopefully there's this little idea in people's heads that, oh, well, this is a way to be a part of the community, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems to mostly go well, but on occasion it just falls on me because, you know, it's one of those things that if you don't say someone specific should do it, and kind of just doesn't get done occasionally. And that's not anybody's fault. It's just like everybody's like, oh, someone's got that.
Yeah.
But that would never even happen outside of here, like with all your friends in the street. I feel like, or at least me personally, you know, it's like just being in this community, everybody kind of starts to get that brothership bond and everybody wants to help each other. Whereas out there, it's like every man's for himself.
Wait, you had friends in the street?
Well, I wouldn't call them that at this point.
Yeah.
I thought I had friends.
Yeah. No, I feel that. I still have wonderful friends out there who, you know, they're far and few in between, but there are still at least a group of like a dozen great friends that I could still lean on for whatever I needed. So you've been here for 2 weeks now.
Yeah.
Is that right?
I think I have
maybe like
day
2.5.
Yeah.
Okay. 2.5 weeks. James, you've been here for like what, 26 days, 27 days?
2 days from a lunar month.
So just about 4 weeks. And so you're at kind of like different stages in recovery a little bit. Where have you seen yourself like progress in the last 2.5 weeks? Like, how did you feel when you came in, and what's kind of like your trajectory been like in the last 2.5 weeks?
I mean, the main thing for me is like, I can honestly say since I've been here, I've had absolutely no desire to use.
Since you've been here?
Yeah.
You lucky dog.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm about 14 years into my addiction. So
yeah.
I'm over it, you know.
How old are you?
28.
Okay.
And yeah, I mean, that's the biggest thing. But also I can just feel myself growing as a person and kind of stepping out of my shell and being able to confront the things that I was trying to mask by using the drugs, and realize that, you know, it's only going to make things worse. Like if I need to make myself happy, I need to get my life together and then go on and, you know, do things that make me happy. Go out and kayak, ride motorcycles,
there we go.
Stuff like that.
That's what I'm talking about.
Before it was always like, oh, you never had money to do things you enjoy because you're trying to mask all your pain by getting high. So that's one big realization of it.
That's pretty introspective.
Get back to living life again.
Yeah, that's very introspective. I've noticed that your progression is a lot of confidence being built. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I didn't come in here very confident. So I can usually see it, and that's no like dig or anything like that. I've just seen you build and grow a lot of like confidence.
Yeah, that's true. Cause I mean, I can't say, I mean, as far as like certain things I have history, you know, or a lot of confidence, like I know I have good skills at doing things and I'm good at working, but my personal confidence, you know, I always felt like I was an outcast. So being able to belong to a community just kind of builds my confidence up. Like, hey, you know, maybe I really do belong somewhere. It's just not where I was.
What I have to say matters. That I have a voice and I know how to use it properly. James, what's your progression been like in the last 4 weeks that you can say? How have you felt like you've grown?
Well, the 4 weeks have been sort of mostly degrees, but the real shocker is the, you know, 55, 56 days, because I came in as a degraded lump. I was a hermit that did nothing. And
when you came into McShin, or when you came into recovery?
When I came into recovery in general.
Okay. At the treatment center that you were at prior
at Parkside.
Okay.
And I spent the first 3 days secluding myself. And I was just like, I don't think I'm going to be able to communicate with any of these people. Because I had, you know, one friend on average at a time. So I felt like I was going to be completely incapable of communicating with people. And occasionally that happened because I use big words, I talk fast, and I'm a really weird person in general. But finding those few that I could really communicate with meant that I could interact with them a lot. And then the people that I could sort of communicate with, that was even more important because I could do in little bursts, getting used to talking to people that I don't necessarily have much in common with. And I had a complex about all sorts of stuff. I was like, I'm not creative. I won't do any creative things because I've got a family of amazing creative folks. And I just thought that I was, you know, the useless one in the household, the one that, you know, I cook. I think of that as a craft, not an art. But
it's the combination of art and science. It's the perfect combination.
And, working on diet and procedures like that, nutrition stuff is something I've been really interested in coming into this whole program.
Do you think that kind of like just a, real sidebar. Do you think that capability that you and I myself also have to say, I'm not the creative type. I am not this. I am not that. Is that kind of contrarian and, self-deprecating nature? One, I don't know, a lack of value that our disease tries to tell us that we have, or do you think that you actually don't feel that way? Like, because you just said you're creative. I've read some of your writings. I've had some of your cooking, and do you think that's part of your disease, or do you think that you actually just feel that way?
I think that's part of my co-occurring disorders.
Okay.
I really do think that it's a complex I developed long before I started onto addiction, but I think it's something that really has affected the way that I progressed throughout my life, because I was like, well, I was defining myself by things that I'm not. And that's never a good idea. Mm-hmm. Always define yourself by the things that you are is one of those things that I've sort of been picking up over the course of the last couple of months, because I didn't know what I was. I mean, I still don't really know what I am in some degrees. Like I've mentioned before that I'm, bi-gender, agender, mm-hmm. which basically means I don't give a shit about gender. Mm-hmm. Oh, pardon.
That's cool.
But so I just have a lot of things that, and philosophically, I waffle all over the place. I have so many different ideas. I think asceticism is a good idea sometimes. I think hedonism is a good idea other times. I have a million different contrary ideas in my mind, and that's the way I like it, because if I actually ascribed to any particular belief system, I feel like that would be limiting.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I absolutely agree. And one of the things that I've seen in your progression is finding those little chunks of identity here and there, and being proud of who you are, kind of, which leads into confidence, I think, is knowing who you are, and then you become confident with who you are. Yeah. But one of the things that I've noticed a lot more, James, is a sense of control that you have. I feel like within the first little while, it was kind of like a shoot from the hip, say what I need to, say what I want to. And if people don't like it, I'm used to that feeling.
Yeah.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Very much so.
Because I've been this way, and most people don't like me, so I still get to say what I want. But nowadays, I see you like literally think before you speak, which is so refreshing to see people actually do. Because I'm not saying you're the only one that does it. I do it all the time, where I think, oh yeah, I can speak my truth, and I practice the spiritual principle of honesty, so I just get to be an asshole to everyone. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But actually watching you reflect, think, and then speak, I think is really refreshing. And I think it's really helped you connect with a lot more people than you maybe haven't been able to in the past.
Yeah, because I always had a very difficult time of when I'm communicating with people that I don't necessarily agree with. It's very hard to try to not be arguing. Right. Because it's still persuasion. I mean, it's still trying to say, this is why I think this is important. This is why I hope that you would think this is important. Mm-hmm. But sometimes it's not really received well, and you have to understand that there's either a point to let it go, or there's a point to just not bring it up in the first place. And that's what I'm working on, because, I will get into a political or philosophical argument with just about anybody.
I mean, James, usually if he has a disagreement with you and he tells you you're incorrect, 99% of the time you're probably incorrect. Yeah. But it's just, he has to work on the way he, communicates that, because people don't want to be told that they're wrong per se, but that's one thing I've seen.
Especially when they are. Right. I'm the same way. Exactly. And that's something that I've had to practice. And it's kind of like putting the mirror onto someone else and saying like, all right, maybe now you can practice dealing with not knowing everything.
Right.
Which, in turn, it can kind of go either way. Brian, how did you get into recovery? So I know we were talking about maybe some like court stuff coming up. What put your foot into the door?
Well, basically, I had been juggling a lot of things financially, trying to work 2 jobs and pay for the house and the new car and all that stuff. And I knew my court date was coming up, and they were definitely going to put me in jail. And I think it was 4 or 5 days before I got into the recovery, before I went to court, I actually got into a car accident and wrecked my new car. So that was like my rock bottom. I was like, I don't have the money to fix it.
Totaled it?
No.
Still
about
wrecked
$8,000 worth of damage.
Would have been better off totaling it.
Yeah, exactly. But no, I mean, that was just kind of the last straw. I kind of realized, like, I can't keep going down this road. I mean, I had wanted to change for a while. I mean, I told myself at least 3 to 4 times a week that, like, tomorrow is going to be the last day. And then tomorrow comes and it's tomorrow's the last day. And then it just took something kind of pushing me over the edge where it was like a wake-up call, like, okay, well, now you don't have a car. Now you can't go out and get drugs. Like, you don't have money. You can't go to work. And it was just like, all right, well, in a week, if I keep doing this, I'm going to be in jail anyway. So it all kind of just clicked at the same time. It was like, all right, well, you've been ready to quit, so now just do something about it instead of just making excuses.
Yeah.
And that's what led me here.
That's awesome. Do you hear any similarities in your story there, James, or what's yours alike and different?
For me, I came in because I screwed up something familial, not legal. But I put myself into a situation where I'd taken something from family that couldn't be replaced and spent the money I'd taken for it on buying heroin. So I ended up getting caught in a circle of lies that I'd had, and the family basically said, you need to go to a recovery facility. And I'd suggested it first just so that I could get on top of the situation, because it was that or run for my life, Yeah. And I was like, this is the end of this. I'm done with this. And I honestly did quite a lot of drugs right before I called, but that's just the foolishness of our addiction.
Normal. Like, so it sounds like in your motivation there's like a sense of fear of what was about to happen. So you took control in it. Has fear been like a motivating factor for you in the past?
Like the big one the big one had always been a fear of pain, because I came into this as a pain patient. I started with being prescribed by a doctor a bunch of Vicodin and moved on from there and on from there and on from there until I was a 10-year heroin user. And I thought that coming off would mean that I was in enough pain that I just couldn't function. And obviously that ended up not being the case. I can do pretty much whatever I physically need to do, although I'm still pretty lazy. I need to exercise more, obviously, but I'm looking into a holistic model of recovery, so I should probably get on that. It's the one I've been gapping the most on. I definitely have spent more time focusing on how to eat right rather than how to exercise right,
So just to double back, it was a fear of being in pain?
Yeah.
Okay.
I thought that I would be incapable of functioning. And turns out that thinking I would be incapable of functioning made me do something that made me incapable of functioning. So probably not the best system.
Yeah. Is that similar for you, Brian? Did you... I hear it in yours a bit more like anger, a bit more like resentment, a little bit. Do you kind of resent these people that you thought were your friends? Do you have those like grudges and anything like that?
I mean, not exactly. It's just, I guess the only resentment is looking back and seeing how many times I'd go out of my way and sacrifice things, like money, time, whatever it may be. I'd have people stay at my house, for instance. Guy didn't have a job, let him stay in my house for about 2 weeks. I go to work one day and he breaks in my house and steals half of my stuff. So, you know what I mean? It's like that kind of thing. Just when I start looking at even in the smaller aspects, it's like, well, how many times have I like helped this person out and helped this person out and helped this person out? And anytime I ask for help, there's nobody around, nobody's around to care. So then it's kind of like you realize that, the people that you think care about you really are just out for themselves.
And the more that I try to reach out and help all these other people, I still end up lonely at the end of the day.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I always had like one partner in crime, one person I could really rely on, and that was my whole system and structure. And I thought that I would go back to that as soon as I was done with recovery for the first like 4 or 5 days. Then my family came to visit, and my sister said something that really stuck with me. And she told me, I don't really know my brother as an adult. And I realized from that, neither do I. I don't know how I work as an adult. I mean, I've been medicating myself for problems since I was 15.
You said 14 too, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and he's a year younger than me. We've got the same amount of time on the same kind of thing. And it's just, I realized there that I have to figure out what being me really means. And I've got a pretty good understanding of it. So it's going to be a process. It's not something I'm going to get overnight, but I'm getting a little bit more of it every day. So that's really been the big thing for me in this whole process. Like after my sister said that, I was still on Suboxone at that time. I didn't have another craving. I didn't have any desire to use again because I was really feeling that just I need to figure out who I'm going to present myself as for the rest of my life. And, you know, a lot of that is I still like dipping in everything. That's part of my whole thing, is that I like a, you know, well-rounded view of the world. But sometimes that gets a little bit hindering because, you know, if you like a little bit of everything, what are you?
I had buddies say jack of all trades, master of none.
My mom says it all the time.
Does that fall under your
Your
personality too, Brian?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that I had, and actually you doubled back on it and made me. I was going to ask it earlier, but you know, you talked about how your sister said, you know, she doesn't know you as an adult. Like, and you were like, your response was, I don't really know myself as an adult. So often in early recovery, as we progress with time, you know, we start to get responsibilities brought on ourselves, you know, because we have that blessing to have that ability where we're not screwing that up. So how does that feel? How does that feel for either one of you? Like coming into, now you have the responsibility that most people are like, well, that's just normal. You know, like I've had that in the past, you know.
Congratulations, you brush your teeth daily.
Like, you know, I mean, I've celebrated something because for me, for a long time, that wasn't normal, you know. So I had that little milestone because, you know, that milestone to me, you know, was something that I celebrated because no one knew what it took for me to get to that point where I was celebrating that. So I guess that's where my question is. If I'm rounding the long train here back to the station, is, you know, how does that feel to be, you know, to be grateful for the opportunities that you at one time did not even recognize because you never had the capacity to understand that was normal.
Yeah. For me, a big part of it, like some of it is dealing with these fears and anxieties that I've had for a long time. And some of it is just that little sense of accomplishment, that little dopamine hit that makes your brain say, hey, I'm doing a good thing. So like, for example, Alex helped me move over my voter registration to an absentee ballot a couple of weeks ago. And that was just a little, oh, okay, I'm doing something good. And it made me feel I'm developing a bit of a sense of self-esteem, and I never had a sense of self-esteem. So that's been really the big thing for it. I feel like I'm getting to be a person when previously I was just existing.
Yeah. I think it's very fulfilling. Just the maturing aspect, you know, I've always heard a lot of people here say, like, when you start using, that's kind of the age you're stuck at. And I kind of almost believe that, you know, it's like, it's nice to feel like you act your age again, because when you kind of neglect all those responsibilities, it's kind of hard to just face yourself. You know, it's nice to be able to wake up in the morning and have that confidence, be able to look in the mirror and be happy with yourself, be able to look people in the eyes and just, you know, walk with your head up high and know that, like, you're living life the right way and that you're able to accept the responsibilities that comes with it, like living life on life's terms instead of running from everything and just hiding.
Because I've heard two quotes that fall under this, and one of them was kind of as Brian was saying, like, a man's character is what he does when no one's watching. So like walking around just doing me, I don't have to like look over my shoulder or constantly feel like I'm screwing something up.
Like
I'm
karma's
screwing
gonna come
something
back
over.
to get you.
Yeah, or I'm like trying to think of all these, as James was saying, like circle of lies that I got to keep. Like, all right, I told my roommate this, but I told my mom this. I told my coworker this, but I told my dad that. So it's kind of like having to juggle these different lies and keep it all straight while trying to, you know, sate my addiction and all this. It just becomes exhausting. And then the other quote that I wanted to say was just to kind of go in the opposite direction, that pressure either makes diamonds or breaks pipes. So do you think that these newfound responsibilities and being an adult can also end up having an adverse effect and maybe leading you into stressful situations, getting burnt out? Like I'm guilty of, putting a lot on my plate because it helps me stay in recovery and clean, but having times where I'm just like, I can't do this anymore. Like I feel like I'm just about to snap.
I definitely get both of those because like I have similar brain chemistry to you. I'm pretty sure there's a decent chance of co-occurring ADHD with me. And I like juggling all those things. I mean, the line cook having to deal with, 80 different things at a time has always been a thing that I very much enjoyed because it was doing a little bit of this task, a little bit of this task, a little bit of this task, and not getting burnt out because you were never doing too much of anything. But I can definitely understand that eventually it can pile up. You can't have too much on your plate. You can end up just getting in the weeds, so to speak. Mm-hmm. And that's always a concern, but I'm thriving with what I've got at the moment, and I've got more coming onto my plate that I'm very excited about. So I'm not too concerned about it. And not having to deal with it with a freaking circle of lies has been so just refreshing because I don't have to worry about, what day am I asking this person for money? What day am I asking this person for money? I'm just doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Mm-hmm. So it's attention out of your neck. I mean,
yeah, and that's a good point. It's like I have to only deal with present and future problems instead of past, present, and future problems. Right. Do you kind of feel that same way, Brian?
Yeah, I do. Like you said, dealing with the pressure, one thing I've really learned since coming here, at least, is you can't focus on the end. You can't focus on the tip of the mountain. You just have to focus on what you can do in that moment, and not let the whole situation as a whole overwhelm you. Because if you try to fix everything all at one time, obviously it's not going to work. Mm-hmm. So you just have to sit back and kind of ask yourself, all right, well, what can I do that's the right move in this moment to make any sort of progress to solving a problem or reaching one of your goals?
Just chip away at it bit by bit. I like
just not be overwhelmed by the overall experience.
Yeah, and I like what Gwen said about, hopefully transitioning from surviving to thriving, and I've seen that progression in both of y'all. One other thing I wanted to talk about was you have now both, I don't know if you ever put like a timestamp on it, James, but you have both mentioned staying longer than the 28 days. You've mentioned 6 months.
Same.
You've mentioned at least 6 months to me.
I know 6 months is the minimum I'm going to be here, but if this internship goes well, I may be here indefinitely.
Okay, so what made you come to that conclusion? What do you expect to accomplish during that time?
I mean, really, the biggest thing is I've just come to the realization that just being here for even a little over 2 weeks, I feel like I'm, even with all the restraints, not being able to do a lot of things, I feel like I'm the happiest I've been in my adult life, just not having to deal with all the problems that come with where I was from, and mm-hmm. I don't want to go back to seeing those people. Like, I don't want to go back to my job at the bar and having drugs all around me. I don't want to go back to hanging out with friends that all they do is get high. Mm-hmm. So I just kind of realized like this is kind of the place for me because there's nothing but really positive influences around me versus, being in the streets and having that temptation, I guess, kind of removes the temptation being in like more of a controlled environment here.
Mm-hmm. And how did you come to your decision, James?
Well, at first it was just, my family had suggested come do the 28 days and then 6 months. And I was like, okay, that sounds like a good way to try and get more time to focus on the various brain messed upitudes that are going on over here. And then I just sort of fell into the community and I was like, wow, there's a lot of things that I could really help with. I mean, like I mentioned, I'm hoping to get the LGBTQ, et cetera, group back up and running here in the next month or so. And I'm hoping to get a nutrition program explaining how important things are going for how much it really helps to look at addiction as a systemic disorder rather than just something that is one particular part of your life. Because like I read a bunch of things like Michael Pollan and that really gives me an idea of how food isn't food anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people in addiction, they eat Hot Pockets and frozen pizzas, it's stuff that
Guilty.
chances are there's, what they refer to as plant cellulose, but it's basically recycled newspaper in it that you can't even digest. And the thing is that a lot of these things,
Jeez.
yeah, really. But a lot of these things, people don't realize how much there are nutrition elements that you can't get from anything but whole foods. Whole foods are too complicated for us to break down in this old nutritionist block of we're going to care about the omega-3s this year. We're going to care about the polyunsaturated fats this year. And really thinking about it that way is just reductionist and doesn't give you an idea of what you really need to be eating. Like, for example, the things that we really need to be eating are stuff like fish, nuts, avocados, fresh fruit and vegetables. And like,
I don't like any of that stuff.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I like nuts and maybe some fruits and vegetables, but
yeah, I mean, one of the Michael Pollan books I was just reading, In Defense of Food, the thesis of it is eat food, like real food, not like processed stuff. It's eat food, not too much, mostly plants. I mean, the thing is, that's a pretty universal rule, but there are specifics that come down to the things that we've really cut out of our systems, like amino acids, for example. We need those to get our brain back running.
Well, just to get back on track a little bit. I know you could go on about nutrition and I think it is a great idea. I don't know anything about it. I eat when I'm hungry. That's about my nutritional value. But I would especially for Brian, because you said you got to chip at it like kind of day by day, bit by bit, but you have said that you want to stay for 6 months. How, and you don't have to answer this because it's not an easy question. How do you know when it's time to leave? Like, how do you, like, what are some of those goals when you know, okay, I'm ready now? Because I know people who think they're ready after 30 days. Right. I know people who aren't ready until 2.5 years. So like, how do you know? You just know, or like, what are kind of the things that you got to check off on your in your personal inventory?
So a big thing for me is just like fighting my inner demons and becoming peaceful with who I am instead of having to get high to like take that feeling away. Another big thing is just having the right sense of relationships and community. You know, if I can build up enough of a network of people who are positive influences and I can carry that outside of this place, then I feel like that would be enough to keep me, you know, where I need to be. Because that's why I like being here, is because people are quick to call you, you know, when you're doing something wrong, they're not going to just let you tell, you know, co-sign.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to call you out on it. And
Mm-hmm.
it's nice to have that kind of check system. So, you know, when you're kind of lying to yourself a little bit, there's people around to kind of set you straight a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a big part of it. And then also, you know, just financially is a big part too, just to stay here, to be able to save up enough money and get out and be fully self-independent financially.
Without having to chase that quick bag.
Exactly.
Like, people love fat. Even people who are, you know, years sober, they're still like, I like that fast money,
Exactly.
that lifestyle and everything like that.
And anything that's going to put me back in jail is going to be out of my life.
Yeah. I think that's a good call, my friend.
Yeah.
James, what about you, man? What brings you to the conclusion of like when you need to, you know, maybe
Like for me, the
spread your wings and fly?
I think the time that I'm going to want to leave this community is when I think that I've provided what I can to it, and it's time for me to try and help a larger community.
Right.
It's going to be
To help a larger community. I like that.
yeah, it's going to be a step of trying to figure out what spheres of influence I can effectively help. And moving on to a larger sphere of influence is going to take time. It's going to take a lot of time. But I can't imagine that there aren't places in the world that would be better off with, you know, more of my philosophy. I mean, I'm one of those people who's like, well, if my philosophy were installed on the entire planet, it would be a much better place.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, that's a little bit of that narcissism that comes along with being in the
No, I've
recovery
had
community.
I've had a theory for not a long time, maybe the last like month or so, that there are two types of people in the world, and there are speech writers and speech givers. and I think everyone might fall under one of those two categories, but knowing what category you fall in makes you even better in that category.
Yeah.
Like, knowing your role in the movie makes you better at that role. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm completely happy to be the set designer and the best set designer that there ever would be. But like trying to fool myself into thinking, but I am really this or I'm really that is just more denial that seeps in and kind of like knowing or prevents me from knowing my identity and how I fit and how I can help people to the best of my ability.
Yeah. The way that I sort of put it for myself, at least, is that I don't want to be one of those people whose name lives on. I want to be one of those people whose ideas live on.
Okay.
So I don't care if I get famous. I don't care if I make money. I care if I make people's minds a little bit more open to the ideas that I think are important.
Yeah, I'm telling you all about that infrastructure change.
Well, just for me to bring it back full circle, like I heard two different answers to the same question.
Very.
One was more focused on self out of Brian, and James, yours was on impact. So where I want to go with it with you, with James, is where do you find yourself at the place where you know that you have enough self-care, have enough focus on your own recovery, that you can consciously and effectively contribute that to a larger scale?
Well, I think that it's going to come down to first developing just the habit of being a functional human being, and then developing the rhetorical skills and the philosophies that will actually be the basis for everything that I try and teach or communicate. So it's going to still have to come down to self-care first, obviously, because I don't know how to handle these situations completely on my own. I still need a lot of infrastructure to help me out with that. I need a lot of community to help me out with that. And that's one of the great things about being in somewhere like McShin, is that there is this large sense of community. And if there's a problem that I have, I know 10, 15 people I can talk to about it. Alex is right on the top of the list personally, because he's got a really good understanding of what exactly I'm handling. I mean, he's my recovery coach. He's gotten to know a lot of the things that I'm working throughout that whole process. So being able to figure out exactly what I need to do to be more effective of a tool for this building of a structure. I mean, am I the hammer that we need, or am I the drill? I mean, I don't know entirely, but figuring that out, figuring out what niche I need to be in to be the most successful in this community is a big part of what's going to be the next month or 2, 3 months, 4 months.
Mm-hmm. It's important to recognize that we're tools. Just we don't know what tool.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to get one of those shirts. I'm not a huge fan of the band,
just a big shirt that says "I'm a tool."
No, just get one of those shirts that says "Tool."
The band tool. Okay, so we usually wrap up with like something that we're grateful for today, but we'll be doing that during our gratitude check at 4:30. Mm-hmm. What I want to ask is, what do you want to accomplish this week, Brian?
That's a big question. I just want to get back to a better place physically and mentally. So I've been really working on just trying to keep myself in a good mood and around the right people, and then also be eating well and start working out again, and just so I can wake up and feel good in my own body.
Nice.
That's where I'm working towards.
What do you want to accomplish this week, James?
I've got to move. I've got to learn. I've got to take one of the courses that you're running this week. Mm-hmm. I've got to learn how to be an executive assistant to Jesse and John and you. I've got to really get an idea of what my continuing place is going to be in this community, because I'm about to start at least a 3-month process of trying to figure out exactly where I can help here. So it's an exciting time for me. I've got a lot going on.
And I love being with two very compassionate and intelligent people, but so alike and different at the exact same time. Like a lot of y'all's answers have been similar in how they're given, but they're like completely different answers. What do you want to accomplish this week, Todd?
Well, coming back from vacation last week, I've got 8 weeks of work piled up now. So I want to get through my workload. No, but
knock off some emails.
Yeah, I'll say. Well, it took me about a day just to get through all of them because I put that little vacation filter on my email, and so I wasn't getting any notifications. And then I go back and look at them, and it's like, oh my goodness. So, but anyways, no, I mean, I just want to just keep staying focused on just the one day at a time. You know, because like it's easy. The farther we launch, it's easier to look further down the road of what we want to get to, and I just need to stay focused on one thing at a time.
I really love that because I've been thinking about all these big things, but the thing that I have to think about when I do that is daily achievable, smart goals.
Yeah, you got to put one foot in front of the other. You can't get everywhere at once.
Absolutely. Well, it's been a delight, guys.
So, and then I did want to plug the fact that we got the Memorial Garden coming up.
Of course.
So if you wanted to,
you know about it more than I do, Todd.
So they're going to unveil at the end of this. I'm going to run a commercial for the Memorial Garden, but they're actually McShin is selling bricks in memory of their loved ones that have passed or fallen, to their disease to addiction. So if you want to know more about it, just go to the website www.mcshin.com, MCSHIN.org. I'm sorry. So, and I have to spell it out because for the podcast part of it.
Oh, of course.
But yeah, anyway, so if you're interested in learning more about that, it's www.mcshin.org, and you can just click on the link for the Memorial Garden. And so that's my little,
Of course. And then we've also got Johnny Fab and Joanna Vance.
Yes, tonight on
McShin After Hours, 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time.
So,
8 o'clock Central.
8 o'clock Central. I think it's like 6 p.m. Pacific time.
Yes, I believe.
And we don't care about Mountain Time apparently, so we're skipping that one.
It's like 1500 Greenwich Mean Time. I don't know what actual time it is, but yeah.
Greenwich.
So we've got Johnny Fab, big fan of his. I'm excited to meet Joanna Vance. Definitely tune in tonight, 9 o'clock. And Brian, James, Todd, it's been an absolute delight. We'll definitely see you guys around. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. Have a good one.
Hi, my name is Mary Ellen Viglis. I'm the chairperson for the McShin Foundation Memorial Garden. 4 years ago, my son was 15 and he was struggling with substance use disorder. He was in the hospital. And McShin came and visited him and told him and I about a program where he could learn recovery tools as well as get his high school diploma. When John and Honesty came to me with their idea of this memorial garden, it was something that I was extremely, extremely passionate and I knew in my heart I needed to be a part of. The first day that we stepped foot on the campus of McShin, I instantly felt many emotions: compassion, unconditional love, lived experience, and a judgment-free place for both of us. Unfortunately, DJ lost his life to an intentional overdose on April 4th, 2020. At 19, he was an amazing young man, wise beyond his years, an old soul. He loved cooking. He was really passionate about it, thought of it like an art. He loved animals. He was so incredibly funny. He always made everyone laugh, and his smile just lit up an entire room. This garden will consist of custom bricks with our loved ones' names, birth and death date. It has a big, beautiful tree with a bench under it, amazingly beautiful flowers and plants. It's truly an amazing place to sit and share space. And I look forward to sharing space with my beautiful boy there. So for a $100 donation, you can have a brick in memory of your loved one that struggled with addiction or died in recovery, and a place where we can all gather as a community and share our stories, share our memories, and work on our grief. I am so proud to be part of this. There's so much hope in his story, even in his death, and I will continue to share it. And this garden will represent a place where we can have memories with our loved ones, where we can continue to speak their name and share our love. And most importantly, I want to be able to honor my son by sitting there, sharing his story, sharing our love. And I am honored to do that with the community. DJ mattered. I don't ever want him to be forgotten. I am so proud of being his mom. I also imagine sharing space with participants, giving them a story of hope, letting them know they're not alone, that they're enough, but there are consequences to not working on recovery and the family that has to experience the loss of their loved ones. The day that my son passed away, my world was broken and shattered. And so when this idea of the memorial garden was presented by McShin, I knew that I had found some purpose in my inexplicable grief, and that I had an opportunity to share our story and continue to share hope.